Morning. Happy, beautiful day that this Lord has made for us. Wow. So, any new folks in the group? I see lots of faces, but it's sort of changing. Anybody new? Okay, so everybody knows what they've gotten into.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
You won't know how to get out of it.
and you're still well, and in 4 weeks you'll be out of it. I'll be relieved of my contract, and we'll be sent on our merry way.
Countdown.
So, countdown has begun. So check for Zoom land. Can I get somebody, Allison, I see your picture on my little screen. Can you hear us okay?
No.
Yes.
Yes, I heard a yes. Okay, thank you, ma'am. So I think we finally got the microphone working this time, and so that's good. So let us begin with the word of prayer. Lord, thank you.
Walk into
Max, you want to pray for us?
Yeah.
All right, so let us pray. Lord, thank you for this gorgeous day. Thank you for the opportunity to come together to consider how we need to build the community you have called us to be. Lord, I ask that you give each one of us the strength, the courage, and the perseverance to fulfill this task so that we may become a refuge for others, a place for your service, and a place where we demonstrate how we love you every day. In Jesus' name we do pray. Amen. I believe we had a public service announcement from Brother McCall here. George?
Public service.
Hi, I'm George McCall, and I'm a sinner.
Amen.
I mean, that's it.
We did it.
No, I have a request for the community. I want to ask everybody to start wearing the name tags. Because it'll help us to get to know each other. Because I know a lot of people in this church, but I don't know everybody. I just met Ron this morning. And they help us make visitors feel welcome, and also help us identify visitors. We'll see them without a tag. And also, when our new pastor gets here, it'd be nice. We all had tags on, so we've got a couple weeks to practice. So this would be my request for the community. And it's a good conscious act. When you're on the way, you're getting your keys and your phone and everything. Pick this up and put it on. It'll make you think. I'm gonna try to welcome a visitor today if I see one or somebody I don't know.
And they're all out here in the hall.
They're all out there. I'll walk past them every time and think, gee, we ought to be using those. And I'd make that plea for the community, and I think it'd be great to have everybody with their name tags on when Brandy gets here and help her transition in. So.
And I'll add to that, if I can, George. 3 years ago or so, when Angel, Danny Hensley, and I started attending here, or just showed up that first week, they spotted us without name tags, and we were largely tackled by y'all, particularly y'all, in the back to welcome us in, and that made such a positive, tremendous impact while we were searching for a church home in this town. I can tell you that means a lot, especially for new folks.
Look for your name tag back there. If you don't have one back there, and you don't have one, and you don't know where it is, then call the church, tell Q, and she'll get a new one made for you.
We've got 3 weeks to get ready. Let's have
100 3 weeks to do that.
Participation.
Pick one you like.
All right, so next week there will be a test. All of your name tags will be evaluated for 5 points.
You know where yours is?
Sir.
George, I just want to say that that must be divine, because I
You better
haven't had
call
my
Q.
name tag, you know where it was for 10 years, and I found it last Sunday.
Come find mine.
All right. Well, good morning again. So this is week 2 of what, in some folks' opinion, is a very boring, dry topic. We're talking about the book of Confessions and the book of Order and what it says about community. But it was so dry, it's going to take 2 weeks to get through it. And we didn't even get into some really, I think, meaty discussions last week. And for folks that missed parts of last week, we identified the Presbyterian USA Constitution is comprised of 2 pieces, the Book of Order and the Book of Confessions. And we spent a lot of time talking about some key confessions and what they have to say to us about community. Now, what they have to say to us. Let me rephrase that. What we have said to ourselves. These are our confessions. This is our Book of Order. We're responsible for changing them. We're responsible for keeping them current. We acknowledge that some of them are way out of date. And we talked about some of the crises that drove the more recent 20th century confessions, from Nazism to racial strife to apartheid to division in the church, and how these confessions were part of our healing and unity and focus for us to pay attention to these things, because they are important, and we've been doing it wrong, right? So this is a critical piece. And so today, I want to remind us what our goals are, because this is one of the things I don't want y'all to think I'm moving the goalposts on you. I want to educate us on where our confessions are and what our public statements of faith and commitment have been. I want to challenge us to a broader perspective. If you are comfortable in what we're talking about, I ask you to reconsider it. Choose an uncomfortable path. Don't say, hey, I got this covered, we're good. Probably not, is my suggestion. And I want to change our hearts. That's my goal. My goal is no less than to change our hearts. This study has changed my heart. So it's possible. Just in developing it for you, for us. So the outcomes, make us a better, stronger, more disciplined community. Remember from the very beginning, discipline isn't fun. Discipline is a set of practices. It's also a form of admonishment to keep you in line, to achieve our goals. So this is about building discipline. This is church gym. This isn't Sunday school class. This is church gym. We're here to become stronger and better. I like that. I just made that up.
Are we gonna decide spell hops?
Verbal. Verbal. In fact, you usually lead those best. Yeah, so we have a couple more if anybody needs, because we got lots of materials. Woody? And again, from last week, they all went that way. From last week, we started in the confessions, got through really the first two, and I had to rush through those, so I want to kind of revisit some of the highlights there and open the dialogue. That's the important focus for this week. So we started with the Confession of Bellharm. And I don't have my notes. I can't even remember when that one was written. I want to say that
Very recently.
That was in the 80s. It was ratified very recently. 94. Thank you. Well, off memory. I sound real smart when I've got the notes in hand, right?
That's one.
It's about the reconciliation of us in community together. And in the way Bellharm is written is it specifically references some biblical passages that build on that piece of the confession. And so let's work on that together. So from 10.3, if I've got a reader, read part of the confession that is listed as 10.3, and they have a little note. We'll read that first bullet. Anyone? It's page 16 in my notes, but I keep moving my notes around, so who knows what you got. It's Confession of Bellharm 10.3. I'll read it to get us started. 15 on the older notes, good. Does that mean I have a winner? Thank you, ma'am.
I see, we believe D is a brief statement of faith.
It's under number 4, confessions, and then subset A is confessions of Bellharm.
That's what happens when I get version control problems, and that is my fault. Woody, you're it. Go for
I'm
it.
it.
We believe.
Okay, 10.3. We believe
Oh, I
that
found
Christ's work of reconciliation is made manifest in the church as a community of believers who have been reconciled with God and with one another. That unity is, therefore, both a gift and an obligation for the Church of Jesus Christ. That through the working of God's Spirit it is a binding force, yet simultaneously a reality which must be earnestly pursued and sought. One which the people of God must continually be built up to attain.
Okay, hold there. Let's talk about those two pieces. Thank you, Woody. And hopefully I was able to give you guys enough noise to find your spot in the notes. Reconciliation. Why do we need to be reconciled to anything? Who are we apart from?
God, each other.
Okay, yeah. I mean, these aren't challenging questions really, because it's God, it's each other, it's mankind, it's the environment, it's our world. So why must we state as a core belief of ours? Every one of you has signed up for this. Also, we got a seat up here front with some notes actually. With a core belief that says that Christ's work of reconciliation is made manifest in the church as the community of believers. Sure.
Well, if you don't do that, then there would be nothing but strife, whether with God or with other people.
I mean, it's hard enough with God, right? Because we get in the way, right?
Yep.
Yes, ma'am.
I have to confess, the first time I read this, the Confession of Bellharm, which was 2016, by the way,
Thank you.
I thought, this doesn't apply to me. This came from where apartheid is a big issue. But on retrospect, it does apply to me, because I'm not any better than anybody else. And I may have some of those reservations about certain people that I was unaware of until I started reading this.
I love that. Yes. In fact, it makes me ask the question, has there been apartheid in Augusta, Georgia?
Oh, yes.
Has there been apartheid this week in Augusta, Georgia?
Sure. There will be tomorrow.
And there will be tomorrow? So now, does this have relevance to us?
Yes, it does.
Because are we reconciling those communities today and tomorrow? Have we acknowledged what our roles were yesterday?
I think we're trying.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are trying. And to me, that's the most critical point is, can I get my head out of the sand and try? Luis?
To me, the most difficult part of reconciliation is that sometimes we don't want to know where we stand.
Yes.
It's difficult as a person to look at yourself and say, I am the product of all these things today, because it's better if you live day by day and just wake up in the morning thinking that you're gonna do something good every day, then you feel that you're doing good without knowing that there might be some things that you have to gather together and do some meditation, and then from there you learn, grow, and move forward. But
Okay, say that last part again loudly. From there, you learn
you learn and grow
and move forward.
and move forward.
That's community. Community is relationship with each other, right? And if relationships aren't moving forward, they're what? They're dying. And so communities are the same way. If we're not moving forward, we're in a stasis that turns into death.
Well, I was just gonna say, one of the, marriage classes or things that Scott and I have been to before, that just reminded me, and I think this is really true in any relationship, that the natural lean is towards isolation, not in the other direction.
The natural lean of humans.
Of marriage,
of-
right, so this teaching was on marriage. So the natural lean between a married couple is towards isolation, not towards togetherness, unity.
Yes, and I think being American, that's even worse for community. Yes.
Well, and just my point is that I think that probably holds true, like, if it holds true in this most intimate of relationships, surely it's true in other wider, broader communities.
Absolutely. I think that's why we're calling it a discipline. That's why we have to recognize the discipline. You have to work at it. It ain't easy. Woody?
Yeah, Carl, I was just thinking about, one of the reasons we have put unity first is because we've been blessed with diversity, right? And we can only really receive the benefits of that blessing if we're committed to a prior unity, right?
Yes.
I was struck, I was on the session when we decided to open up a conversation about homosexuality.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Very difficult, a lot of worry, right? Because the opinions are all over the place in this congregation, right?
Yes.
Is this gonna set us apart? And Matt Rich did a really smart thing. We started with thinking about unity, and we prayed for unity before we ever did anything else, right? And we survived it, okay. I was sort of proud of the church because I was nervous. I think everybody was nervous, but we thought this was something we needed to talk about. So there's diverse opinions, which are probably a good thing, that we're still working out, we're still trying to figure it out. Everybody has their own perspective on some truth that we haven't quite figured out yet. And if we can commit to a unity, we might be able to discover where God is leading us, right?
Absolutely. I think that's absolutely right. Dr. Seuss' book on snitches.
Oh, yes.
Anybody familiar with the book on snitches?
We did
All right,
every
it's been a minute since I read it. But the idea is, we got this group of very particular snitches that's got ours on ours, but they got them's on theirs or something like that. You know, it's a big,
The stars.
stars on ours, thank you. And so they're special and they're unique. And then there's this other group that are different. And the whole, in Dr. Seuss's way, you have this back and forth, and one absolutely changes to become the other changes to become the one. They've both got sets of tattoos they can't get rid of, and then they realize they are better together. I commend it to you as adults. Go read it today. Takes about 3 seconds. I'm sure you can find a copy easily available.
Might be one in the library.
I bet you there is. There should not. It should be. And then it gets us to the question of unity that Woody brought up. What does it say in the second passage? It says, unity, therefore, is both a gift and an obligation. Hello. Who's ever been on, and this could be at school, this could be at work, this could be on the field. Who's ever been in one of those really exceptional teams? Like, I've had that opportunity like twice. Like 2 people, 4 people, 10 people, 30 people. Have you ever had that opportunity? If you, please raise your hand if you have. I'll have to tell a story if not. It'll change your life for that brief moment in time where you're on one of those special teams. And again, whether it's a sports team or a work team, I'm on a work team right now that's like that. And I love going to work every day. It is fun. And we are accomplishing really hard, good stuff. And you get energized by the other people's participation on your team. Never lasts forever. Okay, and that's some people try to drag it out forever. But to me, that's what the gift of unity is like. When you're of one mind, one focus. You are different people. It doesn't say that we don't argue about how to do X, Y, or Z. It doesn't say that we aren't making mistakes. But the unity is that feeling of singularity with other humans. You know, those moments in your marriage when you feel that singularity with that other human. And those are moments, right? Because we just talked about the fact that our inclination is to separate. But in those moments, that's a gravity. It's a gift, right? And guess what? It's also an obligation. Tell me about the obligation piece of that. What is your obligation to unity?
Do it.
Look at Jay. Look, Jay. Do it. Just do it. Nike. Talk to me. How do we do it? This side of the room's been quiet. I'm looking at y'all now. How do we do it?
Where you step back and realize it's not all about you.
Yes.
And listen.
Yes.
Get involved.
Yes. General.
To reach out.
Reach out and establish relationship. You've got to do these. These are just pieces of this puzzle, right? It's one of those 5,000 piece puzzles it takes all year to do. General Martin Dempsey had to say, I worked for him when he was chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and a phenomenal human. One of the few generals I actually really respect as a person. Brilliant beyond degrees. But he says, of the military, why are you in? You're in because of the memories. You're in because of the experiences. Well, that applies to every group there is. Get involved, create experiences. So far, one of the best times I've had was Brandon. One of the best times I've had at church is working at the Gap. We sweated and we huffed and puffed and, cut things, tore things up. And of course, George is a one-man wrecking crew out there. And the Team McCall, it saved the day. I now know Team McCall in a different way because we've shared some sweat together. Quite frankly, it's that simple in my world because you have those involvements where you get to experience and listen and reach out and be reached to. Mike.
This may be a little bit of a tangent, but
it's all classic.
a certain part of the population seems like right now wants to force conformity on everybody. Like if you don't believe this way or that way, or think that, then you're canceled, or you're looked down upon or banned or whatever, and that's causing more disunity than anything else. It's kind of forced, so it's going about it the wrong way. It's like they're trying to pressure the stuff to go through, and difference of opinion is not allowed.
And that's, our obligation is, I think, absolutely opposite of that, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That I need to learn from your experiences and your walk to educate my walk. You know, two of my friends are in the back and they're educating me weekly. You know, Woody and Scott are just teaching me things they don't know. They don't know they're teaching me, but by listening to their walk, I'm learning. And that's what community does, right? I don't necessarily agree with them. I don't necessarily disagree with them. But that's what we're here for. Yes, ma'am.
Well, just thinking about as we've evolved as human beings and moved forward with technology, we've lost the sense that we need each other. We don't walk around thinking, I need these other people. I can, we forget where does things come from. Obviously we do, but we see ourselves as so self-sufficient, whereas in not so distant past, you needed all these different people to survive. You needed the person who knew how to plant fields. You needed the person who knew how to tend to wounds. You needed the person who knew how to cook a meal. You needed all of these people in order to survive where you were. And we don't see each other in the same way, but we still have the same need. We need the person who understands how to show compassion. We need the person who understands how to organize a group. We don't see them as priorities or necessities anymore. They're sort of an add-on, and I think that's where the sense of community has fallen apart, where it's like, oh, yeah, I can do this myself. It's like, no, you really can't, but you know way, as I think when it was so obvious that you had to work together.
When it was critical.
When it was critical.
Yeah. So on Team Zoom land, did y'all hear what
I wasn't there.
I love it. Did y'all hear what Nadine said?
Name tag.
Not well.
Not well. Okay, so brief repeat was back in the day. Sorry, Nadine. It's gonna be that kind of day. I almost blanked on Scott's name a minute ago. Back in the day, the churches were the center. I'm gonna rephrase it just a little bit. The churches were the center of the community, but became so from a very critical need. We needed each other to survive. I'm thinking about the lone church in the prairie out west sort of thing. And today, through technology and other influences, we don't think we need each other. We still do. Is that a fair restatement?
Yeah.
Okay.
Much more succinct.
An extension of that is.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I think that we need each other physically as well, to be.
Has COVID not taught us anything?
Yeah.
It's really one of the components of loss of a community is not physically being together.
I agree. Like just a minute ago, I was telling a story about Gap, and it was about the sweat component. But it's a product of being together. The men's group that goes out to the lake, once a year. It's proximity matters. Proximity is key. You're right, Brandon. And going for a year without a handshake or a man hug killed me. Yeah. It was hard. Woody?
Hey, Carl, I think about this thing where it's talking about it's both a gift and an obligation. I'm thinking about the obligation part. Early in my career at this church, Jerry gave a sermon. And the sermon was...
apparently he put the stud in Bible study.
What century was that?
Jerry gave a sermon, and it stuck with me, I mean, to this day. And the question he asked was, are you a host or a guest?
Strong.
Are you a host or a guest, right? Every member in this church needs to be a host.
Strong.
And not like be waiting to be talked to. You've got to be the one reaching out and seeing what needs to be done and do it. Find the person that needs to be reached out to and reach out. It made an incredible impact on my life, I gotta say.
We need to hear that again.
I'm serious. It's giving me chills just thinking about it. We need to be a host. I like that.
Yeah.
How many people proclaim themselves as introverts? Is hosting, for you introverts, I'm gonna ask you to hold your hands still up. I'm gonna make you uncomfortable. Does hosting make you uncomfortable?
Much anxiety,
Much anxiety, nervousness.
thoughts.
So what can you do?
Do it.
Do it.
Anyway.
What can you do to get over the anxiety?
Right?
Alright, so all you extroverts, raise your
Ask for
hand.
help.
There you go, she did it. All you extroverts, raise your hand and y'all help out. We do it together.
Yeah.
A little public confession, I'm actually an introvert. I fake it exceptionally well.
We all did.
But, you know, when, like, after I give a public speech, you know, certainly when I was in uniform, like if I was at a conference or a panel in front of hundreds of people, I would get back to the hotel room and go face plant into the bed. I was done, and that's when I realized I was an introvert. George?
So going back to Nadine's comment about needing each other, I went to a church where the pastor was big into corporate worship. He's like, you need to be here every Sunday. You need to be here, be here. And he was always repeating that to us. And one of his points was that even if you're not getting anything out of the service, somebody else will see you there and know, man, I know they're going through a hard time and they're still coming to church, and that will inspire them. And I thought, that's a good point. So that helps me drag myself here, is that I may not get anything out of it, but it might help somebody else to see me there.
Say that to me, man, directly. Actually, Nadine's right there. Come on, George.
I'm talking.
What's her name's back there? So actually, that's a perfect segue to that which is referenced in John. Give me another reader here, if you're tracking where we are. It says this unity, this unity.
I got it.
Jared.
That this unity must become visible, so that the world may believe that separation, enmity, and hatred between people and groups is sin, which Christ has already conquered, and accordingly, that anything which threatens this unity may have no place in the church and must be resisted.
There you go, that's good.
Keep going?
No, that's good, you're good. That this unity must become visible. George said it. There is a value to seeing that we are a part. We are a community in discipline to a standard that sets itself apart. All voluntary actions. These are things that we say about that discipline, about that distinction. But it is not to create hatred between people and groups or other enmity and separation amongst people. It's about giving them a destination they can come toward, not that we are going away from. I'm thinking again of apartheid. That was all about away from. But we are now called through that lesson, that hard lesson, looking in the mirror, realizing we do it wrong. Let us be a place people can come to, a destination. Don't force them, but by building commonality and rejecting the sin that is hatred and strife and separation. Anything that threatens, this is what we at the church say, anything that threatens this unity may have no place in the church and must be resisted. I think we have to accept that as truth when we enter into conversations about homosexuality or racial strife in the church or gender discussions in the church. We're PCUSA, we got no problem with gender issues. We're also human. We're not there yet, right? So, getting into kind of the laundry list here, this has been a fantastic discussion. I'm having a ball. I hope y'all are. In that this unity of the people of God must be manifested and be active in a variety of ways. Here they come. Let's see, I'm gonna pick a winner. Nadine, have you got a sheet?
No.
Well, get a sheet.
Oh, I have one now. Sorry.
We're
Where are
at
we?
Colossians 3:12-16 under
In that we love one another.
bingo. In that we love one another. This is what we say we do, manifestly and actively. We love one another. But them Rosenswags, man. They got that house that's 2 doors up from mine. They weird. Hey, did you know they're LSU fans? Only thing worse than Alabama fans.
We accept them though.
But I don't want to.
Too bad.
Exactly. I'm just picking on y'all. All right, Philippians 2. Who's got a sheet? Philippians 2, 1 through 5. Go for it.
We experience, practice, and pursue community with one another.
You know, even though those Rosa Swags, which are kind of apostates in many ways, they're here and we're there, right? We're here together. We're practicing this community. That's what we've got to do. Now, I'm going to ask the question that I asked earlier. Who invited somebody to class? Oops. Practice harder. Do push-ups. You know, bring more folks. That's part of it. It's what George talked about at the beginning, what these fine ladies talked about before George walked in. You know, bring your name tag to church is a way of practicing that community. These little things of opening doors rather than creating and closing them. Hosting rather than visiting and guesting. The Ephesians bullets. Who's a winner? Pick a winner.
Together come to know the height and the breadth and the depth of the love of Christ. Together are built up to the stature of Christ, to the new humanity.
Together, we become like Christ in doing this. That is the goal. That is the standard. It's not so that we can become the coolest church in town. Not so that we can become the most exclusive country club in town, or the country club church in town. But that our doors are wide slap open. And that we're actively pursuing others together in Christ, for Christ.
But we're constantly splitting.
Well,
the northern church, the southern church.
We have a nasty habit of that. And if we remember the one on the next page, great segue. Galatians 6:2. Go for it. You see it?
Where am I?
Galatians 6:2.
Together know and bear one another's burdens.
Together know and bear one another's burdens, thereby fulfilling the law of Christ. Okay. That just got sticky.
These things, I'm just trying to think of Bellharm and apartheid and all that, running through my mind. I don't think there's any black people here, are there?
No.
Standing in the back. I'm just saying, we talk about we're open and we're inviting. In a sense, we're not.
Yeah.
In a sense, and I'm trying to figure out how. I mean, I have a lady that works for us for 45 years. She's a great friend and we love her. But she wouldn't be comfortable here. We invited her to come to the mountains to see us for a weekend. She said, I wouldn't be comfortable if I did that. And that just bugs the hell out of me, of how we go about doing that and making unity with somebody who is really in a different part of the culture than I'm living in, and how I do that and not feel guilty because I'm not doing it right. Does that make any of y'all have any of that kind of feeling? I mean, I don't know what to do, but just to be as sweet to D as I possibly can, because every time I show up, that's all I know to do.
And that's the start. And Galatians, in this part of the confession, I think opens an additional door. It's called empathy. Together know and bear one another's burden. That's an intimate act for me to know and bear what's troubling you, what's troubling thee, what's troubling me. Yes, ma'am.
I brought a person of color to church several times over the last couple of years because her church is closed still. Not one person in this church came up and spoke to her.
We get an F when that's the case. We get an F. We have failed. We have not only failed, we've made it worse. Come on, folks. Tell me, after considerations, we're not ever going to let that happen again. The people in this room commit to that. Please tell me that.
Okay, we'll commit. Yeah, just out of curiosity, how many people in the room remember when we swapped congregations with one of the, what was the name of that?
Terrace.
Bill Terrace, I think.
Bill Terrace.
Yeah, we swapped congregation years ago. Half of us went to the black church, and they came to our church, and then the second Sunday we flipped around.
Sounds fantastic to me. Because you can't gain that intimacy until you're in a relationship. These things build on each other.
I thought that was, the one thing I do remember is the pastor of that church, when we first started, he said, okay, you people from Reed, I want you to know, you're gonna be here longer than you will
Clear schedule.
And we were.
I recently found out the devil comes into the church through the parlor too.
Sure can. Corinthians goes on to add in this, again, think about it as a chain. We're in relationship, we'll begin to know each other. We then can know each other's burdens and then bear them. It's not that, hey, Luis, I know you're having a hard time at work and whatever, making this up. You know, I know about it, and then I'm gonna go about my cup of coffee after that conversation is over. No. It's somehow creating the right way of locking arms and walking together. Carrying the load with each other. Well, we're Americans, we're independent, we don't need to do that. I'm tough, I got this, right? Right? Yeah, I know. Because the next one says, we need one another. I think Nadine, I remembered her name this time.
Thank you.
Nadine said that just moments ago. We need one another and upbuild one another, admonishing, and comforting, yes, one another. Basic rules for relationships. We have to do this. We gotta know this. We gotta be deliberate about it. Not just come bebopping in and be happy. Yes, ma'am.
And I think that can really only happen with small groups.
I think you're right. There's an intimacy that is required. I think you're absolutely right.
We also think sometimes we have to share 50-50, and sometimes that person 10% is all they have, and you have to put the other 90, and it's still 100. But sometimes in our minds we feel that I'm doing this much, and this other person is not pulling their weight. They are. The thing is that they might not be able to pull the weight with the same amount of load that you can. That doesn't mean they're not doing it. So sometimes we try to measure I'm putting this much and this person is putting this little. And to me, fair, that doesn't mean equal. It can mean if that person is doing 10%, it's 10% you don't have to do. That's what they can.
Right.
But,
That's the opposite.
but in our
of
brain,
empathy,
we say, I'm doing all the work and they barely doing anything. And
right. And that's the opposite of empathy. That means I'm going to judge you by my standard. Let's say I'm really good at calculus. Woody's a philosopher. He's not even good at calculus. We're going to do this thing. I'm like, God, Woody, why can't you do this? This is simple. Pi sine x squared. Come on, get it right. And that's unfair. It's inappropriate. All right, once again, we are blowing time.
Where are you on it, Mary?
I am going to skip, so I'm going to give us a new destination.
Okay.
Look for the chapter, the section on from the Book of Order, because I'm gonna kind of leave us with a black eye. This is one that bothers me.
Page 17.
5 minutes.
I've been given the 5-minute warning. So from the Book of Order, section or bullet A, section W-3.0403. Or is everybody at least there? In the section of baptism.
Oh, baptism, responsibility for baptism.
Yes, ma'am. In the section on baptism. First off, baptism is your entree into this church membership as a member of this body and congregation of the whole. The Book of Order says, I'm going to read the second paragraph. When a young child is presented for baptism, at least one parent or person exercising parental responsibility should be an active member of a Christian church, normally the congregation in which the baptism takes place. The session may consider a request to baptize a parent baptize a child whose parent is an active member of another church. If the session approves such a question, should communicate with the other church. Those presenting children for baptism will promise to nurture and guide them until they are ready to make a personal profession of faith and assume the responsibility of active church membership. That's the parental commitment, right? They have to answer questions. Do you, the parents, understand your roles and responsibilities here in the guidance and governance of this church? On the next page of my notes, the congregation. Here we go. The congregation makes vows to support and nurture those being baptized. No one comes to baptism alone. We're encouraged by family or friends, surrounded by the community of faith. I'm gonna say we get an F in this too. Every one of us, when a child has been baptized in our churches, has said, yep, we promise to be that spiritual aunt or uncle. How many youth names do you know that aren't yours?
You know, what you said about the parents taking this oath here probably needs to be reinstated now that we've been through COVID and we've separated ourselves and there's hardly even a Sunday school class.
Well, so my wife Angel teaches middle school Sunday school class, and
I didn't miss a beat.
yeah, they actually kept rolling. We did the heavy duty Zoom land, so the structure's in place. Where are we, the church? Where are we, the church? Is Sunday school just for kids? No. This is Sunday gym, right? New class. We redesignated this Sunday gym. GYM.
It has been.
Come on, guys. I'm the youth deacon, and this is a personal moment of frustration. I'm a youth deacon in this church. We barely can have a quorum for the committee meeting. Now, I sent out an email last week to all of y'all that I have on the list, asking for volunteers. Who would like to join me on the committee? Please see me after class, or after gym. Huh?
I just.
Bless you. Bless you. And it doesn't need to be just parents of kids. It needs to be this church for two reasons. One, that's how we let the church know what's going on with the kids. And that's how we bring different experiences to the youth. We got to spend time with them. We have to mentor and nurture them and come alongside their parents. And we're not doing that. That's an internal community we are ignoring. Yes, ma'am.
As someone who's been in the classroom for 20 years, I can say that it's harder and harder every year as a teacher. It's a calling for me. It's what I do because I felt called to it by God. But I feel like I'm raising 22 children.
Where's the church in that conversation?
I bring church to my classroom every single day because I have to.
And you'll get fired if you call.
But I don't care.
I know.
But I just feel so overwhelmed every single day in the classroom because I don't see evidence that these children have any community in their home, in their own churches, wherever they're coming from. These children are there's it's just, the need is so great. It's crushing sometimes.
We inherited the church whole from our parents. Our children are going to inherit the church whole that we leave to them. And we admit that we're in a pretty rough spot right now today. What are we giving them? Let us focus on at least one aspect of the church to strengthen community and to establish that care, that give a darn, right? To be uncomfortable. I don't know any high schools, they speak a different language. Yeah, they do. I got one. But let's go learn the language, right? It's a challenge I'm asking of y'all.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. So, I know, I'm out. Do read the rest of that.
Yes, sir.
The car's not here yet, so keep going.
So I'm gonna open up some of the questions that I've been meaning to get to this whole time.
Should we bring this back?
No, I'll have a new set next week.
Yeah, just bring it.
So let's give ourselves a grade. How are we doing? Just a little bit of the confessions that we've read over the last 2 weeks. How are we doing? C minus is on a curve. We got some work to do. It's okay. This isn't a chance to beat ourselves up. This is our chance to acknowledge where we can be. That others have trod the heavy dirt for us to make it easy. I think we discussed where we are on our capacity and capabilities within race, and we stink. Youth, and I give us a D. D plus. What about the divide between generations? I see some of my peers here. I don't see anybody below us. Yeah.
One of the things I have enjoyed in the church, because I'm new and I'm not a member, official member yet, is the fact that by seeing this big gathering of people in the Sunday school, it lets me to believe that the members of the church care about the future of the church. Because I've been in Sunday schools where it's only 4 people or 6 people, and the rest of the people just, as soon as they get communion, they get in their car and leave. So to me, having all these people in the class means to me that they're committed to the church and they're committed to the future of the church, that they care about the church. And it's important to me because I'm doing a transition from a Lutheran church to a Presbyterian church. So that's, even though we share the same values, probably not in the same order, but at the same time, they're all the same values to me, and that's important for my family and for myself to be here.
And I've stated this, my goal, our goal, because y'all agree by being here, is that we will change and become a visible, united community. And that will draw others in, and we will keep learning. Yeah, and that fires me up. I mean, I haven't been this excited to come to church in years. That's because of y'all.
Just remember, we're on probation with Luis right now.
Yeah.
Jim, go to the principal's office.
Thank you.
All right. We good?
We're good, you're good.
No, I'm not good. We are good. We are good.
You gonna be here next week?
I will be here next week.
Okay.
God willing, and the creek don't rise, as we say. Let us close in prayer. Lord, I thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for this group that is willing to come together in community, acknowledge where we have been, and look forward to where we can go. Lord, empower our feet, empower our hands, empower our minds, hearts, souls, and bodies to serve, welcome, unite, and build for you. In Jesus' name, we together pray. Amen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim Lynn.